They say the smartest people are often the loneliest, not because no one loves them, but because they have built firewalls even love can't break through. I used to think I knew what I wanted. I had money, class, influence, and options. So many options. But I didn't know that love isn't coded logic. It is chaotic, vulnerable, raw. My name is Amara, and I almost deleted the one man who would have gone to the moon and back for me. They say love is written in the stars. Mine was written in every word he spoke, every silent sacrifice he made, a love language I was too blind by ambition to translate, until my perfect world crashed like a bad line of code. I am not the kind of woman who waits for a seat at the table. I built the damn table and licensed the blueprint. At 32, I was already Chief Innovation Officer at Afitech Solutions, one of the most sought after tech leads in West Africa, a Forbes 30 under 30 alumna with multiple successful launches and a name that burst in the tech spaces from Lagos to Cape Town. Raised by a single mother who cleaned offices at night so I could attend the best schools, I promised myself I would never depend on anyone. Every naira I earned was a victory. Every promotion, a battle won. Every award, a middle finger to those who said women couldn't code. I lived in a high-rise penthouse in Ikoyi, drove a Tesla I loved showing off, and had a circle of friends who turned heads wherever we went. My squad, three high-value women who understood the game. Zainab, the fashion entrepreneur with boutiques across West Africa. Kemi, the media mogul who turned a blog into a digital empire. And Folake, the investment banker whose predictions were so accurate, people joked she had a crystal ball hidden in her becken. We were Lagos royalty, loud, brilliant, scandalously ambitious. If there was a pitch event, we were there. Champagne, there. Tech gala, there. Soft like weekend in Zanzibar, front row. Love? Of course, we all believed in it, just on our own terms. Another one bites the dust, Folake would ask. Eyebrow raised when I would show up to our Sunday brunches with stories of another failed relationship. Adebayo couldn't handle that I made more than him, I would say, rolling my eyes while sipping champagne. His ego was more fragile than government promises. They would laugh because they understood. It was my pattern. 3 months was my relationship expiry date. Men either wanted to control me or couldn't handle my success, and I had no problem showing them the door. I wanted to want someone but never need them. We met at a closed door tech conference in Nairobi. I was scheduled to speak on a panel about women in tech. The usual performance where I would inspire young girls while secretly wondering if anything would ever really change in a male dominated industry. That's when I saw him, Ekene Adeyemi. He wasn't loud, no flashy suits, no do you know who I am energy. He was understated. Yet, when he delivered his keynote, the room was silent. Even the social media addicts looked up from their phones. He had just sold one of his patented blockchain solutions to a French multinational, quietly without fanfare. And when I Googled him later that night in my hotel room, my heart skipped. Ekene Adeyemi, 34, MIT graduate. Not born with a silver spoon as I had assumed. His parents, a judge and a university professor, had raised him with values, not just wealth. He had grown up in a middle class neighborhood in Ibadan, put himself through MIT, and self funded his first tech venture selling refurbished laptops at Computer Village. Its patents had revolutionized financial inclusion across rural Africa, connecting farmers directly to markets without middlemen eating into their profits. Later, at the conference after party, our paths crossed by the bar. Your panel was impressive, he said, his voice deeper than I expected. Though I disagree with your take on quantum encryption, most men compliment my appearance first. He challenged my ideas instead. Bold of you to admit you are wrong within 5 minutes of meeting me, I replied, taking a sip of my martini. He laughed, a genuine laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. I never said I was wrong, just that I disagree. It wasn't the money that drew me to him. It was the discipline, brilliant mind, the calm certainty in his eyes, and the way he looked at me like I wasn't just another powerful woman. I was his person. We started slow, coffee in Lagos, road trips to Ibadan to meet his family, late night brainstorming over takeout, and barefoot dancing in my living room to Burna Boy. Our first real date wasn't dinner or drinks. It was at an art gallery opening in Victoria Island. I wore my powerful outfit, red lambing dress, Louboutins, minimal jewelry, the outfit that said I was there to be admired, not pursued. He showed up in a simple black suit that probably cost more than some cars, but he wore it like it was nothing. Standing before an abstract painting, he tilted his head slightly and said, "It reminds me of quantum computing, beautiful chaos that somehow makes perfect sense when you step back." That's exactly what I was thinking, I said, surprised to find someone who saw the world through a similar lens. He made me laugh like I hadn't in years. He didn't compete with my ambition, he respected it, and he never raised his voice, even when I was impossible. And oh, I was impossible. I would ghost him for days when stress would work. I would reject his help just to prove I could do it myself. I even forgot his birthday once because I was pitching to investors from Singapore. He never complained, just smiled and said, "I understand." For 6 months, a personal record, everything was perfect, almost too perfect. "How did you know Burna Boy is my favorite artist?" I asked when he surprised me with VIP tickets for his sold out concert. "I pay attention," he said with that smile that still made my heart skip. That was the problem. He was attentive, patient, never pushed back when I cancelled last minute for work, never complained when I took calls during dinner, never tried to compete with my success but celebrated every win as if it were his own. But what I didn't know was that while I was busy testing love, he was out there protecting me. Zainab later told me how he once paid off a journalist who tried to dig up an old family scandal about my mother. Femi discovered he had anonymously fixed a critical security flaw in my company's app backend that could have cost me my biggest client. My executive assistant mentioned how a friend had helped move my mother to a better hospital when her blood pressure shot up before I even knew it happened. It was him, always him. And I kept acting like he was an option, like he would always be there. My friends thought I had hit the jackpot. "Girl, it's literally perfect," Kemi said during our Sunday brunch. "What's the problem?" "No one is perfect," I replied, stirring my mimosa with some force than necessary. "It is too good to be true. And when something seems too good to be true, it usually is." Folake finished my sentence. Our financial analyst mind always on the lookout for hidden costs. So I did what I always do. I started creating problems where there were none, tested his patience, cancelled dates last minute, picked fights over small things, left his messages unread for hours. I was setting up obstacles, waiting for him to trip, to show his true colors, to confirm what I already believed, that no man could truly accept a woman like me in all my ambitious, complicated glory. But he never took the bait. Instead, he would send flowers after our fight with notes like, I still think you're wrong, but I would rather argue with you than agree with anyone else. It was infuriating and endearing and terrifying. Then came the offer that changed everything. A venture capital firm from Berlin offered $4 million in seed funding for my new fintech idea if I relocated to Germany. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, the kind of deal that could catapult me from successful to legendary. I didn't ask Ekene what he thought. I just told him over dinner, watching his face carefully for any sign of resentment. Go for it, he said, smiling. This is your dream. But that smile, it wasn't the same. I moved 2 weeks later. We tried to keep in touch, but I was drowning in my new life. New partners, new pitch decks, new time zone. I had sent him quick texts. Meeting ran late. Can we reschedule our call? Rain check on our video date. Meanwhile, at work, I was facing the biggest challenge of my career. The pressure was enormous. Investors were watching. Competitors were waiting for us to fail. Sleep became a luxury. My temper shortened, and Ekene became the easiest target for my frustrations. That's when the unthinkable happened. He stopped replying. No goodbye text, no drama. He just disappeared. I sent emails, left voicemails. I am sorry. Can we talk? I miss you. No reply. Zena told me he had deactivated all his social media accounts. Folake heard he had stepped back from public facing work, and in the silence of my perfect Berlin apartment, overlooking a city that suddenly felt foreign, I felt something break inside me. Then, my perfectly constructed world really began to crumble. One of my co-founders leaked our source code to a competitor. Our German investor threatened to back out. Tech blogs that once praised me now called me reckless and out of our depth. And just like that, the empire I had built with blood and sleepless nights began to collapse. I hadn't slept in 36 hours. My career, everything I had worked for, was on the line. That's when my assistant called with news that knocked the air from my lungs. Amara, your mother has had a stroke. She is in Lagos University's teaching hospital. I flew back immediately, guilt punching through my chest with every mile crossing the Mediterranean. When I arrived at the hospital, exhausted and frantic, I followed the nurse to the ICU ward. And there, sitting beside my mother's bed, holding her hand and reading to her from her favorite devotional, was Ekene. He looked up, surprised, then his expression softened. You forgot to update your firewall, he said with a small smirk. That dumb tech joke. My heart cracked open. I broke down in the hallway outside her room. Ugly, chest-racking tears that I had been holding back for months. How did you know? I asked when I could finally speak. About my mother. I never stopped looking out for her, he said simply, or for you. As my mother recovered over the next few days, pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Ekene had been silently monitoring my company's security even after I left. When he detected the breach that led to our code leak, He had already begun building a counter strategy, creating a stronger version of our platform's architecture. Why? I asked him as we shared lukewarm hospital cafeteria coffee. Why help me after I left you behind without a second thought? He looked at me with those calm, certain eyes. Because love isn't conditional, Amara. It is not a transaction where I only care if you care back. I didn't know how to love, I whispered. He took my hand across the table. You were learning, he said, and I was always willing to wait until you saw it. In that fluorescent lit hospital cafeteria, I finally understood what real strength looked like. Not my ability to stand alone, but his courage to love without guarantee. While my mother recovered, I spent days with Tekene, really talking for the first time. I was so afraid of needing you, I admitted one evening as we walked along Lekki Beach, of becoming dependent on someone else. Needing someone doesn't make you weak, he said. It makes you human. The Berlin opportunity was gone, my reputation damaged. The career I had built with such single minded focus was in shambles, and strangely, I felt lighter than I had in years. With Ekene's help, we traced the security breach, gathered evidence, and prepared a counter strategy. Working side by side, my technical expertise and his strategic mind created solutions I wouldn't have found alone. Not because I wasn't capable, but because two brilliant minds are better than one. And in the process, I discovered something revolutionary. Vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was its own kind of power. I always thought I had to choose. I told him one night, between being strong and being loved. The strongest choice you can make is allowing yourself to be loved, he replied, even when it is terrifying. 6 months later, I was rebuilding my life from Lagos, not because I failed abroad, but because I finally understood what mattered. We co founded a new tech company, this time together. 3 days before our launch, we called a press conference. Together, we revealed the corporate espionage attempt against my company and announced our new venture, a powerhouse alliance that would revolutionize African fintech with stronger security protections than anything the market had seen. The business headlines called it a strategic masterstroke, but standing there beside Ekene, his hand steady at the small of my back, not controlling me but supporting me, I knew the real breakthrough had nothing to do with business. Ekene never proposed with a ring. He just slid a USB drive into my palm one night as we worked late at our new office. It contained a folder titled Amara X Forever Better Version. Inside was a photo of the night we met in Nairobi, a copy of our first joint project code, and a text file that simply read, You were never broken, just waiting for the right update. That night, on my balcony overlooking the city we were both working to transform, I finally said the words I had been too scared to say. I love you, and I am sorry it took nearly losing everything for me to realize it. He smiled, taking my hand. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way, especially for stubborn tech geniuses. They say the smartest people are often the loneliest, not because no one loves them, but because they have built firewalls even love can't break through. I was that person, encrypted, protected, isolated in my own success. But love isn't something you build like an app. It is something you grow like a tree, patiently, vulnerably, roots deepening with time. And sometimes, the best version of you isn't the person that gets applause and accolades, but the one that lets herself be loved. That's what I learned about Ekene. That true strength isn't never needing help. It is knowing when to accept it. That independence doesn't mean isolation. That love, real love doesn't diminish you. It expands you. In every word, in every action, in every moment of patience and understanding, in every hand extended when you are falling, and in the courage to finally take that hand when it is offered.